So, it's a little tour of Vrindavan and Krishna Leela. Use that for sound effects. Okay, everyone stretch.
Higher?
No, it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. Find. Oh, I thought I put a bookmark. Yeah, here we go. Hare Krishna. So today we get to read about the moon and reflecting on liquids like oil or water and how it creates an inaccurate reflection, and especially because of the movements of the wind. And in that purport, Prabhupada says the wind is always blowing on our mind. To get a good, clear view of ourselves, we have this Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the cleaning the mirror of the Chitta, our consciousness, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, and cleaning it. So now here's another way of looking at it. Looking at ourself is reflected on the mind. And I'm trying to remember how this went, but somebody asked a question and it seemed like the whole circumstance. We went to the beach in North Carolina when we advertised we would have a kirtan and watch the full moon rise out of the ocean. And so it was 40 people, and they were all very new people. I'd never met them before. They were new to kirtan, but they were into yoga. They're part of the yoga community there in Wilmington, North Carolina. And so we were doing the kirtan, the moon rose up out of the ocean, and then I paused for a moment and said, look how beautiful everything looks with the moonlight reflected on it. And now our mind, our consciousness, allow the mantra to, just trying to clear that, and it's in the wrong place. Do I click on this? No, don't leave the site. Yeah. And that's.
Where is it?
And that happened.
No, I closed it.
There was some other window that opened up. Let's try to move that away. Anyway, I just said, look at how beautiful we all look, how everything looks with the moonlight reflecting on it, and with the mantra reflecting in your consciousness. Just see how beautiful the whole world becomes. And then I said, see how it's reflected out in the water, because the water is moving, the reflection is moving. But if your mind is still, then you will really be able to hear the mantra, and you'll be able to see the self purely if your mind is relaxed. And so a lot of people, they got something from it, and after it was over, somebody came up and asked a question: what is it that's being reflected on the mind? What is it? What's the reflecting surface? It's a real interesting question. How would you answer that, Vishal? What is it that's being reflected on the mind, and we see ourself? Who is observing it? Is what she asked. It's a valid question. Our thought feeling? Yeah, but she was asking, who is observing and what are we looking at? Yeah. We are observing. Yeah, because this whole idea that we're about to read here is you're observing something, but it's inaccurate because the mind is flickering. So who is looking and what are you looking at? Are we looking at ourself? Sometimes clear, sometimes distorted, but sometimes not at all. Yeah, everybody just move in closer. We got plenty of room here, but
we got to cover the space. Use the building wisely.
yes. But I like a discussion instead of lecturing to the four walls.
See the whites of the eyes.
What's that?
You can see the whites of the eyes.
Yes. Yes. Jyotir yathav odaka partivesh vada. First of all, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. With a calm mind, see the mantra reflected purely in your consciousness, reflecting on the Cheta. I heard one lecture where Cheta, we have the mind, manas, buddhi, intelligence, but Chitta is something even closer to ourselves. Now we've got this scholar here who can help us. How is Chitta different from manas and buddhi? If somebody was saying like Chitta is, it's even closer to who we are.
Chitta is subtler than the mind.
More subtle than the mind. Okay.
It's close to consciousness. Chitta carries the consciousness.
Chitta carries the consciousness.
Chetana comes from Chitta. Chetana. Consciousness is in Sanskrit in Chetana. So it comes from Chitta. That's why Manmana and Chitta both are used.
Manmana,
and Chitta both are used. Engaging the mind, engaging the Chitta.
Much chitta, madgata prana, bodhayanta paraspara. Okay, so if something is in your chitta, it's even more in you than it is when it's in your mind. Something in the mind is flickering. We talked about that yesterday. But the chitta, if something makes it through the mind and it becomes your chitta, you can't get it out. So Krishna says, much chitta, madgata prana. My devotees, I live in their chitta. It's beyond even intelligence. We're here. This is us. Over here is buddhi and intelligence, and then mind. It gets further away. Buddhi, intelligence, it says, is practically next door neighbor. But somewhere in between, we could say, is chitta. It's even closer to us. The chitta is
It's like subtle intelligence. Subtle intelligence.
Yeah, there is no one fixed word in English.
What is closest to it?
You can say that deep down habits, the impressions which are very deep in the mind, they are mind maybe more, we can say subconscious way. In our terms, we can say subconscious.
So there are deep down habits, things that you can't get out. That's your chitta. There's no one word that can, but it'll take lectures and essays, and not just one. You have to listen to that lecture and understand it, and then think, okay, now I got it. And then you're going to hear another lecture, and like, oh, I thought I understood it. Yeah. Yes. So, Cheto Darpana Marchanam. So, chanting Hare Krishna reaches deep down past the mind, past the intelligence, and goes in and starts scrubbing deep, some really deep cleaning. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. So it's a powerful cleanser. Goes past all the other things. And then that verse, this is from the main 4 verses of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Mach chitta madgata prana. With these, for devotees, I am in their chitta. You can't push me away. Mach chitta madgata prana. Their life air, that's their life, their prana. I'm their prana. Bodhayanta parasparam. And they love studying and learning more about me and talking parasparam among each other and preaching to each other about me. Bodhayanta parasparam. Katayantas chamam nityam. And that kind of kata, nitya, they're always doing this. Tushyanti cha, ramanti cha. And they really enjoy doing that. So these are my devotees. And the verse before that, do you know that one? Chapter 10, text 8. Aham sarvasya. Mata pravartate iti matva vajante mam buddha bhava samandita. So I'm creating everything. Hare Krishna. I'm creating everything. And then he says, everything flows from me. People who understand this worship me with bhava. We brought up that word yesterday. Buddha bhava samandita.
Which bhava?
The feeling, deep feeling. Buddha bhava. Now there's that Buddha word. Is that buddhi? With their intelligence and their... Okay. So with intelligence and affection. And then the next verse, it says, Mach chitta. I'm deep rooted in there. What do you call that in medicine when someone's got some disease that you can't get rid of it? It's chronic. Chronic or it's going to be there the rest of your life. It's deeply impacted. What's the word I'm looking for? Terminal. There's another word. It's just really, it's so deep rooted, you're not going to be able to get it out. Chronic, yeah, I think there's another word though. Anyway. So they can't get rid of it. Oh wow, 3 pages of workload for this one. So here we go. So anyway, let's start again. I was just saying, now, still your mind. We'll say the mantra and let it reflect in the stillness of your mind. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jyotiryataivo Dakapartireshvada. Samira Veganugatam Vibhagyate. Evam Swamaya Rachiteshvaso Puman. Guneshuraгаnugato Vimujyati. When the luminaries in the sky, such as the moon, the sun, and the stars, are reflected in liquids like oil or water, they appear to be of different shapes, sometimes round, sometimes long, and so on, because of the movements of the wind. Similarly, when the living entity, the soul, is absorbed in materialistic thoughts, he accepts various manifestations as his own identity because of ignorance. In other words, one is bewildered by mental concoctions because of agitation from the material modes of nature. Okay, so Kamsa in the moment, how was he reflecting? It wasn't a very still reflection. He was being agitated by the modes of material nature. Uh-oh. Okay, now I found it. Purport. This verse gives a very good example by which to understand the different positions of the eternal spiritual soul in the material world and how the soul takes on different bodies. Dehantara Prakti. The moon is stationary and is one, but when it is reflected in water or oil, it appears to take different shapes because of the movements of the wind. Similarly, the soul is the eternal servant of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when put into the material modes of nature, it takes different bodies, sometimes as a demigod, sometimes a man, a dog, a tree, and so on. By the influence of Maya, the illusory potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity thinks that he is this person, that person, American, Indian, cat, dog, tree, or whatever. This is called Maya. When one is freed from this bewilderment and understands that the soul does not belong to any shape of this material world and is situated on the spiritual platform, Brahmabhuta, there. That first paragraph, that could be the whole purport. Boom. So much. What'd you get from it, Vishal? You looked like you were...
Just like you said, depending on the perception, misconstrued, perverted.
Misconstrues a perverted identity. Yes. A little closer. Mhm. Good. We're reflecting, and what the verse is talking about, or where the purport's going to go, is he's going to talk about the wind distorting the reflection. And he's comparing the wind to the three modes of nature. And I just remember in this purport somewhere he says that wind is always blowing to some extent in the material world. We can slow it down a little bit, but so long as we are in material consciousness, it's always going to be moving. And so those distortions are, he gave the list twice without looking. What kinds? He gives examples of the distorted perception of ourself. Sometimes you think you are Indian or American. What else? Animal or a tree. And both times he kind of gives, and so on. The second time he says, or whatever. That just opens it up. A mosquito, yes. I'm catching half of what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Yes, we're disoriented. Identifying with these different...
What we call nature, but and everything here has a nature, like personality. It is just a product of your nature, or the illumination reflects also its own nature.
And that nature comes about by the three modes of nature. The three gunas cause us to have a particular temporary nature. And by rising above the influence of the three modes of nature, then we come to our real nature. But meanwhile, as a dog or a cockroach or a lizard, we carry out our nature.
But every living entity has some particular way of being, like something special for his personality that comes from the soul, or is just a reflection of reality.
Oh, yeah, good question. So we all have some nature, and some people are known to be spiritual. Is that coming through from the spiritual soul, or is it just caused by the modes of material nature? How much is the soul really shining through? Good question. Everybody got it? So let's build suspense here. Let's read the next paragraph, because that first paragraph is really good. You don't want to rush through this, but we also want to keep everyone awake. And maybe, so we'll hold on to that question. If someone has an apparently spiritual nature, and we have our nature, is it governed by the external nature or the internal, spiritual Shakti? Okay, this realization is sometimes explained as nirakara, or formlessness. Nirakara. Why is he bringing that word up? That must be in here. Is that? Jyotir yataya bodhaka partileshvara samira vegana vatantiha somaya. No, I don't see that nirakara. He's bringing it up from somewhere. The realization is, the realization that we are not any of these things, nirakara, or formlessness. All of these things are illusion, so we have no form at all. We have no nature. So it's starting to address your question. Some people say that's the reality. We have no nature. This formlessness, however, does not mean that the soul has no form. The soul has form, but the external agitating form he has acquired because of material contamination is false. Similarly, God is also described as nirakara, which means that God has no material form, but is Satchidananda Vigraha. The living entity is part and parcel of the supreme Satchidananda Vigraha, but his material forms are temporary or illusory. Both the living entity and the Supreme Lord have original spiritual forms, Satchidananda Vigraha, but the Lord, the Supreme, does not change his form. The Lord appears as he is, whereas the living entity appears because material nature forces him to accept different forms. The Lord appears as he is, whereas the living entity appears because material nature forces him to accept different forms. Kind of addressing your question. Material nature is forcing us to take on forms and different kinds of nature. When the living entity receives these different forms, he identifies with them and not his original spiritual form. As soon as the living entity returns to his original spiritual form and understanding, he immediately surrenders to the supreme form, personality of Godhead. Okay, I had a feeling your question would be answered here. So as soon as we surrender, then we immediately return. Let's see. He's kind of putting it differently. When we return to our spiritual form, we immediately surrender to the supreme form. And I have an idea what verse he's referring to. Anybody? Bet you Bangshidhar knows. Well, that's another one. Oh, yeah. That's another one. But there's another one that it's in the second canto, chapter 10. You know which one I'm thinking of? When we achieve our swarup, mukti, hitpanyata rupa, swarupena vyavastiti. Srimad-bhagavatam, in the second canto, in chapter 10, it says, here are the 10 topics of the Srimad-bhagavatam. And do you know the verse? The 10. Atra sarga visargas. So sarga means creation, then secondary creation by Brahma. Sthanam. Sthanam is maintenance. Sthanam, planetary systems. Poshanam is protection of the Lord. Sthanam Poshanam. Uttaya,
creative impetus.
the impetus of the living entity to create things. Creative impetus, Uttaya.
Manvantare,
Manvantare, so the manus, description of the different manus.
Ishanukata,
Ishanu Kata. So Isha, that means like the avatars of Krishna being explained. And
Nirodha,
Nirodha, winding up everything. And it's so good having this guy around. And Mukti, liberation.
Asraya.
Ashraya, the ultimate shelter, Samambonam, Krishna. And so Mukti, so after that, those, is it 2 verses? Or is it just 1 verse describing all 10? Just 1 verse. These are the 10 topics of Srimad-bhagavatam.
Actually, 2 verses are, the next verse describes about all of these things.
Yeah, the next, well, it's a few verses. And then there's a few verses opening up what each of those mean. Then when it gets to Mukti, Muktir hitvanyata rupa swarupena vyavasati. So Mukti means when you achieve your swarup and you engage in your eternal service toward Krishna. Okay, so when we engage in devotional service, this is Mukti. And as soon as the living entity returns to its original spiritual form and understanding, immediately surrenders to the supreme form, personality of Godhead. So I believe he's referring to that. But then he brings up, this is explained in Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Yanavan Mam Prapadyate. Everybody knows that one. Do you know that one? Okay. You know how to do service. That's enough. Okay. So Bahunam Janmanam Ante. So after many births, Yanavan Mam Prapadyate. One who is in knowledge surrenders unto me. When the living entity, after many, many births, in different forms, surrenders his original form of when the living entity, after many, many births in different forms, returns to his original form of Krishna consciousness, he immediately surrenders unto the lotus feet of the supreme form, Krishna. This is liberation. Okay, I knew it. That's Mukti Hitvanyata Rupa. This is liberation. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, 1854. Okay, a little suspense here. What do you think he's going to bring up? 1854. Oh. Yes, text 54. Anybody got it? Give a peek. Brahma, Buddha. Really loud. Interesting. Like, Prabhupada's, look what he's doing here. He's been talking about, okay, this whole paragraph. To take these paragraphs as chunks and like building. It starts off. Some say near this realization that I'm not the body, and this reflection is distorted. All right, we just need to get rid of the whole form and everything because we're actually formless. This is all an illusion that we have any form at all. And then, so he gives all kinds of evidence saying, no, God has a form. We have a form. It's a different kind of form. God is also described as Nirakara, which means God has no material form. And we are also, we have a material form now. God never has a material form, doesn't change. When the living entity receives different forms, he identifies with them, Prabhupada's given the list twice. Sometimes you think you're a demigod, sometimes you think you're American, or Russian, or a tree, a dog, and so on, etc. But when he returns to his original spiritual form, he immediately surrenders to the Supreme Form. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, after many lifetimes of accumulating knowledge. The goal of all of that knowledge is prapadyate, to surrender. When the living entity does that, this is liberation. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, 1854. And this verse is like, what? What does that have to do with liberation? He's bringing in a whole new thing. How are we going to tie this together? One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. All right, now let's see how Prabhupada connects this. Surrender unto the Supreme Form is the result of bhakti. This bhakti, or understanding of one's own position, is the complete liberation. So bhakti is the means for getting there, and once you're there, bhakti is the goal of getting there. That's the procedure, and it's also the goal. As long as one is under an impersonal understanding of the Absolute Truth, he is not in pure knowledge, but must still struggle for pure knowledge. And then he brings in another Bhagavad Gita verse. Getting real technical here. Kleshom dikattarastesham avyakta sakyachetasam. Although one may be spiritually advanced if one is attached to the impersonal feature of the Absolute Truth, one must still work very hard, as indicated by the words klesho adhikattara, which means greater suffering. A devotee, however, easily attains his original position as a spiritual form and understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his original form. Do you know this verse? Klesho adhikattara sesham avyakta sakya chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukam dehavadviravakyate. Anybody know it? So that's in the chapter 12. Arjuna asks, what's better? Should I worship you the way I see you and love you, or should I worship the impersonal, the unmanifest? And Krishna says, he answers this one. So Prabhupada always talks about klesha means trouble. Adhikattaras tesham. Just a lot of trouble, pain, and then later in the verse the word dukam comes up. Yaktahi gatir dukam. It's a lot of misery and pain and suffering trying to achieve the Supreme that way. And in the purport, Prabhupada says something really surprising. He says, even if you start following this impersonal process, and if by your good fortune you meet a devotee and take to bhakti yoga, the personal path, it's really surprising what he says. Even then, impersonal conception is going to haunt you. You will not be able to give it up entirely. So he says, from the very beginning all the way to the very end, this impersonal conception is dukkha. It's a sad situation, and it's klesha, it's lots of trouble. It's really powerful what he's saying here. And I heard years ago, Jayapataka Swami said, there was someone who joined the devotees. He came from the impersonal path, and with a lot of trouble, he surrendered. He surrendered, took initiation, chanting japa every day. And so after some time, they asked, so how are you doing with this? And he said, oh, I love it, love it. What do you like the best? I like chanting japa, because when I'm chanting, in between each syllable, there's a tiny moment of silence, and that's what I focus on. But he just can't give up that impersonal conception. Tiny moment of silence between each syllable of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. That's what he's focusing on. So it's hard to give up. So it's dukkha, it's sad from the very beginning all the way to the end. But as, let's see, it's one of the purports in the first canto where Prabhupada says, it is, the process of bhakti is easy and sublime. He says it's easy for one who is brand new and they're just on the threshold of the house of bhakti. You know what a threshold is? It's the doorway, as you step through the doorway, it's the floor, the bottom of the door, the threshold. If you're in the threshold of the house of bhakti, it's easy. And for one who is further advanced, it becomes sublime. Every day it becomes more and more sublime. So it's easy and sublime. But the impersonal path, they show it's full of hard work, trouble, problems. They show vikatarastesham avyakta sakyachetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham. A lot of sadness. Okay. Krishna himself explains the forms of the living entities in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where he clearly says to Arjuna that he, Arjuna, and all other living entities who were previously in their original forms are separate individual entities. Anybody know that verse? They were individuals in the past. They are now situated in individuality, and in the future, they will all continue to maintain their individual forms. Yeah. Yeah. All right. She's got the English. Anybody want to try the Sanskrit? Me, you, and all of these kings. Yeah. Good job. Good teamwork going on here. Okay. And so he says, Krishna is explaining the forms of the living entities, saying they all existed, you existed, I existed in the past, we're going to continue to exist in the future. He never says they've existed in the past, they're existing now as individuals, but in the future, when they achieve liberation, they're all going to become me. He doesn't say that. And at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna asks Arjuna, did you understand everything? And then Arjuna says, yes. Now I'm ready to become you. And Krishna says, yes, now you become me. It's not in there, no. Bhagavad Gita doesn't end that way. But some people say that's how it goes. That's what Bhagavad Gita is telling you to do. And, well, how come Arjuna didn't merge into Krishna when he achieved the perfection and he said, yes, now? I don't know about that. We're getting off on a different topic. We got plenty to handle here without bringing in cowherd boys. Yes, but first, what we're doing here is Sambandha Avideya Prayojana. Sambandha means, first of all, understanding our position in our relation to Krishna. Avideya means practicing bhakti. Prayojana means when we achieve bhakti, we achieve pure love for Krishna, then those kinds of things happen. So here we're in Sambandha, establishing who we are. Kamsa's not ready to hear it. Avideya, practice of bhakti. Prabhupada's putting that into the purports. Okay, so they were individuals in the past. They are now situated in individuality, and in the future they will all continue to maintain their individual forms. The only difference is that the conditioned living entity appears in various material forms, whereas Krishna appears in his original spiritual form. Unfortunately, those who are not advanced in spiritual knowledge think that Krishna is like one of them, and that his form is like their material forms. And here we go with another God of the universe. Prabhupada's just throwing it in anywhere. He's not just making this stuff up. Avajananti man mudha manushim danavashritam. Krishna is never puffed up by material knowledge and is therefore called achyuta. Where'd that come from? Krishna is never puffed up by material knowledge and is therefore called achyuta, whereas the living entities fall down and are agitated by material nature. This is the difference between the Supreme Lord and the living entities. How much more do we have? Okay, just one more paragraph. In this connection, it is to be noted that Vasudeva, who is situated in a transcendental position, advised Kamsa not to commit further sinful activities. Kamsa, a representative of the demons, was always ready to kill Krishna or God, whereas Vasudeva represents a transcendentally situated person to whom Krishna is born. Vasudeva is the son of Vasudeva. Vasudeva wanted his brother-in-law Kamsa to refrain from the sinful act of killing his sister, since the result of being agitated by material nature would be that Kamsa would have to accept a body in which to suffer again and again. Elsewhere in Srimad-bhagavatam, Rishabdev also says, Nasadhu manye yata atmanoyam asannapi kleshada asadeha. There's that klesha word again. Klesha means trouble, and so this one says all trouble comes from having a deha. Asannapi kleshada asadeha. Klesha da means to give. So having a body gives you trouble. So nasadhu, sadhu means, so nasadhu means, that's not a good idea, manye. I think it's not a good idea to engage in activities which bring you more material bodies, because asannapi kleshada asadeha. As long as the living entity is entangled in the fruitive activities of so-called happiness and distress, he will receive a particular type of body in which to endure the three kinds of suffering due to material nature. Tritapa yantrana. Where'd that come from? Is that in... an intelligent person, therefore, must free himself from the influence of the three modes of material nature and revive his original spiritual body by engaging in the service of the Supreme Person, Krishna. As long as one is materially attached, one must accept the process of birth, death, old age, and disease. One is therefore advised that an intelligent person, instead of being entangled in so-called good and bad fruitive activities, should engage his life in advancing in Krishna consciousness, so that instead of accepting another material body, Jaktva Deham Punarjanmanaiti, he will return home back to Godhead. So many verses, and he's just throwing them in. Do you know that one? Jaktva Deham Punarjanmanaiti Bam. You know how it starts? Starts the way all of us start, Janma. Yes, go ahead. Jakva deham punarjanma. Okay. Okay, I think we did it. How many Bhagavad Gita verses did he quote in here? So many. Dehantara Prapti, Brahmabhuta, Nirakar, Satchidananda Vigraha, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, then Brahmabhuta Prasannatma. Okay, it's already referred to that one. Then Klesho Dikatarastesham, Avachananti Mammudha. And he quotes Srimad-bhagavatam. Okay, so there's one more. And then Bhagavad Gita. And Chakva Deham Punarjanma. So 6 Gitas and 1 Bhagavatam. Okay. Srimad-bhagavatam ki jai.
Krishna Brahma ki jai.
Hare Krishna. And class dismissed. What's mine? Do you play?
No, I have not demonstrated. I want to learn how to play, but I have really been playing this. You know how to play it? Do you know how to play it?
Yeah, I play it some.
Would you like to teach me? I can play with the lines.
Do you know a couple of chords?
No.
Oh, you got to study the chords.
Yeah, but you guys start by teaching me chords.